Hi, I need parrots. That's a weird thing I need. I realized that, but let me explain why. We're building a swamp, a mangrove swamp, and we've been building this for a while. We finished the trees, so now I'm kind of working on the details. We have kind of resources to do a couple things like frogs already, and we can get resources pretty easily to do a couple things like the terrain. We can like kind of make it more muddy and like have grass and firefly bushes. We don't have the resources for that yet, but it's pretty easy to get that kind of stuff. We have the resources probably to do most of the crocodiles, though we might need a little bit more tough and cobblestone. That's easy to get. Parrots are not easy to get. We're gonna need these for the trees. We're gonna actually like have them in there and look like waterfowl and stuff. But parrots are not easy to get. You cannot breed parrots for some reason. So you have to like kind of just rely on passive mob spawning, which is not a good system for this kind of thing. Basically there's a mob cap for passive mobs of 10 within simulated distance. You can't have more than 10 mobs that are considered passive mobs for the mobs to stop spawning. If there's more than 10, you're not getting any more pigs or parrots. So that's kind of like a problem. Now, I have found farms on YouTube or whatever, and they have kind of worked around this issue by killing the parrots. So you have parrot farms out there, but they're basically just more for feathers rather than actual parrots. So I can't really use any of those designs. And I've tried to make some of my own in a previous episode, and it went really poorly. We only got ocelots to spawn. All the parrots I've gotten so far have been through just running around the jungle. That's it. And just like taming any parrot I came across. That system works pretty well, but not perfectly. It's really slow. We need a faster method, and I think I have figured out a way to kind of manipulate the spawning a little bit better so we can get more parrots. Basically, if you go into your options and your video settings, you have this little slider called simulation distance. Now on a server, that doesn't do much, and we're on a server, so it doesn't do much. It basically just acts as a render distance for entities. But behind the scenes, in like a single player world, that simulation distance actually does something a little bit more important. It actually changes the way mobs are considered and like processed by your computer. So anything outside of the simulation distance literally just doesn't exist anymore. It's not counted towards any mob caps or anything like that. Unfortunately, we're on a server, so that slider doesn't do much of nothing. But we are the host of said server, and I have access to the server config file, which means I can change the server's simulation distance to be less than whatever it is right now. I can kind of set it to whatever number I want. I can make it a really small number, like 1. And so every chunk that we enter into, we like have a completely new mob cap of 10 to hopefully get parrots in. This could accelerate the rates of acquiring parrots a crazy amount. We're gonna try this out. I have plenty of seeds. I have a mule to run around the jungle in. We're gonna try this out for like an hour or two. I gotta reboot the server to actually like apply the config changes. But yeah, we're gonna do this. We'll be back, and we'll see how many parrots we get. We got 4. We got 4 parrots in like 2 hours. This is crazy. We need something else. We need something needs to fix this. I have an idea, basically, of what went wrong, and I forgot about something. I forgot about something very important about passive mob spawning, and that's that they don't spawn too close to the player. Like if it has to be like 20 something blocks away from the player for it to count as like a valid spawning space. So nothing was spawning on the surface because everything was too close. Our simulation distance made sure that everything was too close. We gotta bump up the simulation distance a bit. I think that should help our issue. Basically what was happening before was there was a bunch of bats spawning underneath. I think like we're still gonna have that issue a bit, but it should be a bit better whenever we have valid spawning spaces on the surface. So we're gonna go through the jungle again for maybe another couple of hours because I got plenty of time, and just kind of see how many parrots we get again. Trial and error, we're gonna figure this thing out. Well, that didn't really work. We got 3 more parrots. That's not enough. We need more. We need a lot more. How are we gonna get more? Well, I have yet again another idea. The problem was, I think, not bats, because I actually have found out that bats don't count towards the passive mob cap. They're like in a category of their own, which is cool. But I think what the problem was is because our simulation distance is now high enough, it's counting mobs in like a much wider area, so we just never got below 10. So like we just didn't get any new spawns anywhere in the jungle, which is kind of the problem we were trying to solve by reducing our simulation distance. So there's kind of just not a sweet spot, I guess. So how are we going to get more parrots? Well, I have another idea. Basically, we go back to a simulation distance of 1, but that didn't work last time, so why is it going to work now? Well, it didn't work last time because everything was too close. What if we weren't too close, but still on a simulation distance of 1? We can go in the sky and still be within the same chunk and be farther away from the spawning spaces on the ground. That's a theory. I don't know if it's gonna work. It was kind of the theory behind my old parrot farm attempts. That didn't work though. So we're gonna have to like definitely try and see how well this works, because I really don't know if it's going to. We're gonna try it. I should have everything I need, which is basically just a bunch of seeds and scaffolding. So yeah, let's try this out over in the jungle, and we'll do this probably not for too long if we just don't get any parrots, but if we start getting parrots, we're gonna get a bunch, and kind of just see how long it takes. Something weird is happening with the mob spawning stuff that's happening. Basically, the simulation distance is 1, and I thought that would limit all the spawning into this one chunk, but that's not how this works apparently. So if we actually like toggle chunk borders, you can see this is the one chunk that theoretically anything should spawn in, and if we toggle hitboxes, you can see there's nothing in this one chunk. But if we toggle chunk borders again, you can see a little bit better now, and notice that there's a bunch of entities down there. Those weren't there before. They're just spawning in. What's happening? I don't know. But I have an idea. If we go down here, you can see that there are hostile mobs, like that spider, but there's also ocelots. A lot of ocelots. Pretty much all of these are actually ocelots or hostile mobs. Which is really weird because ocelots theoretically could not be spawning in such large numbers. The passive mob cap is 10, right? Yeah, it is, but it's kind of a bit more complicated than that, apparently. So, basically, what I think is happening is ocelots technically spawn in as hostile mobs, even though they're part of the passive mob cap. So they kind of bypass the passive mob cap. They will just show up regardless of the passive mob cap, which is really weird, but that's, I guess, just how Minecraft works sometimes. And So they will spawn in pretty large numbers and also pretty frequently. The passive mob spawning stuff only happens every so often, and the hostile mob spawning happens a lot more frequently. So you have a bunch of ocelots that will show up long before any parrots show up, and they'll fill all the mob cap, and you'll never get any parrots, even if you like continuously kill all the ocelots off. You're never gonna get below the mob cap, pretty much. So that's kind of a issue with our whole idea of how to get parrots, right? So how are we going to get more parrots if the mob cap is constantly full of ocelots? Well, we can't really, not in this jungle anyways, but there is a different way parrots spawn in, regardless of the mob cap, bypassing the mob cap by spawning in a new chunk. Basically, whenever you generate a new chunk, there's a chance for passive mobs to just spawn in, regardless of the mob cap, in that chunk to populate it with passive mobs and stuff. There's a chance that whenever we generate a new chunk in a jungle, that we get passive mobs, such as parrots. And I think that's basically how we've been getting every parrot we've gotten so far. But we're out of new chunks in this jungle. I've gone up and down it like 20 times now. We're not getting any more parrots from here, unless we get that really rare chance when we have no ocelots anywhere nearby. But that's a really rare thing. So I think to improve our rates, we're gonna just have to run around a different jungle for a little bit, and then once we're done with that jungle, we need to go to another one, and another one, and another one, and another one. That's really slow and annoying. But I have an idea that might work, but I don't want to do it here. I want to do it in another jungle, so we're gonna go to another jungle anyway, get all the parrots out of it, hopefully, and then try something else, maybe. Alright, you can see over that hill there, we are to the next jungle. I don't plan on doing anything really fancy just yet. I'm just gonna feed a bunch of parrot seeds and just run around for a while. Basically what my idea is now that we're in a different jungle, to kind of set up a perimeter to try and remove any spawning spaces of ocelots in the area. That's going to be pretty difficult, but I'm hoping it should work. We'll do that after we get a bunch of the naturally spawning parrots, though. We got 12 parrots. That's not bad. We spent about an hour and a half, which is about the same amount of time we spent before, getting about 4 parrots at a time. So this has by far been the most productive batch of parrot collection that we've done. Which means that, generally speaking, this is probably the best shot we have of getting a bunch of parrots. But there's a little bit of a problem with this. You see, we got about 12 here, we got 14 back at the other jungle. We need 120. So we have a total of 26. We would need to do this about 8 more times to get the number of parrots we need. I don't even know where that many jungles are. That's a lot of jungles to go and find and explore thoroughly and all that. So what we're going to do is try and find a better way than this, which is going to be difficult because this was actually pretty good. But I think I have an idea. So we're going to bring all these parrots back to spawn, and then we're going to go to a place that I think will be good for parrot farming. and I'll explain what that looks like in a minute. Alright, so what's my idea? Well, bamboo jungle. I found this bamboo jungle out here, and it's pretty much the only type of jungle nearby. And bamboo jungles specifically are pretty interesting because they don't allow ocelots to spawn, but do allow parrots. So this is like the perfect place to build a farm. We do have bamboo jungles in the jungle near spawn, but we're kind of trying to like preserve that area because you want it to look nice for builds and stuff. So I didn't want to build anything over there. I'm kind of more fine with building a farm in this area. But to build a farm, we still have to reduce all the other kind of passive mob spawns. So how are we going to do that? I don't really know exactly. I do have a whole shulker box of leaves, which should prevent pretty much everything from spawning other than parrots. But I don't really know that I want the parrots to spawn on the ground either. So what we might end up doing is try and like just first build a platform up in the sky and not have the whole ground within the spawning radius. That might work, but there's still probably passive mobs within. You can kind of see a couple hitboxes. Yeah, there's still probably a couple passive mobs within 128 block radius, which is the radius between like the player in which the mob cap still counts. So that's probably not going to work too well unless we mob proof this whole area, which is going to be a big undertaking. But I think we can kind of negate the amount that we have to mob proof by kind of going over the ocean a little bit, because there's that ocean right there. That might help us out. We'll see though. Right now, I'm going to just try and build a platform in the sky and kind of see if that works at all. I don't think it will, but we'll try it anyway. The wiki is wrong. Ocelots can spawn in bamboo jungles. Here's proof. Those down there, those are ocelots. And I'm pretty confident that they're ocelots, actually. I'd even go down there if it didn't take too much time to come back up. But basically, those are ocelots, and I don't know why they're spawning down there. To really get into this, mob spawning is a little bit weird. First of all, mobs can only spawn in 128 block radius, which is why we're up in the sky from the player. So everything down there shouldn't mostly be in the radius. There's a couple of like tops of trees and stuff that are going to be in the radius whenever we're up there. And also because it's on a hill, there's kind of like that mountain right there. There's kind of more of a risk of things being in radius, but this is 128 blocks plus another half stack, so it's another 32. So nothing should really be within the spawn radius of the player. Or if we toggle our hitboxes again, you can see that there are mobs over there, but whenever we get over here, they disappear because they're no longer being simulated by the server. They're no longer counting towards the mob cap. So we don't really have to worry about those. But we are getting occasional spawns within the bamboo jungle of ocelots, and I don't really know why that's happening. But I don't really have time to try and fix this. My other idea that I had of this area, trying to spawn proof the whole thing so only parrots can spawn, isn't really going to work if ocelots can spawn in here as well. And even if I did do it, that's not probably the problem we're having right now, because there's only one ocelot down there. Well, now there's two. But there's only two passive mobs down there. So the mob cap should be below 10. There should be more spawns happening. They're just not. And I don't really know why. Maybe it's that other passive mobs are being counted that are outside of the simulation distance. Like maybe I need to go even further out this way. I don't really know. But I don't really have time to test it and fix it and reiterate on it until it works. At least not in this episode. So yeah, I think the best method we still have is trying to find more jungles and more parrots in those jungles, which is going to be a long endeavor. that's going to probably span over multiple episodes, which is unfortunate. But, I mean, there's nothing else I don't think I can do. So we're going to end the episode here. Thank you guys all for watching, and God bless.